Welcome, Fluffy Barrage casters, to the REAPER virtual audio cable and general mic setup tutorial video. REAPER is a digital audio workstation that allows us to apply certain filters known as VST plugins to our microphone for things such as streaming and Discord calls. A virtual audio cable is a piece of software that acts as both an audio input and an audio output in Windows and sends everything it hears on one end to the other. This will let us monitor the effects we apply in REAPER and use it as a virtual microphone in another program like Discord. The first step is to install our programs. You should have these two files downloaded already from the two links provided. First thing we're going to do is go ahead and run the REAPER setup. We'll just hit I agree, click next here, and basically keep everything as it is default. Once that's finished, you'll see a pop-up appear that says REAPER has been installed. Run now. Go ahead and just click no. The next thing we'll do is install the other file that you downloaded, which is the virtual audio cable. We'll go ahead and right click on that and select extract all. And that will create a new folder wherever you downloaded the file, which will contain a few files. It should automatically open, and we're looking for the virtual cable setup file that ends with x64. Go ahead and right-click that file and run it as administrator. Otherwise, it will yell at you. Go ahead and just install the driver. Now it'll tell us that we might need to reboot our system, and we're going to go ahead and close the window that pops up and do that now. Once Windows is restarted, the next thing we'll do is go ahead and adjust the sound settings for the audio cables that we've just installed. To do that, we'll open the Start menu and type Sound. Open up the Sound Settings menu, and on the right, click Sound Control Panel. If you're on Windows 11, the same window can be accessed by scrolling all the way down in your Sound Settings menu and selecting More Sound Settings at the bottom. The first thing we'll do is select the Recording tab. You should have your real microphone and a new device that's just been installed called Cable Output. We're going to adjust the settings for these by right-clicking on our real microphone and selecting Properties. We'll go to Advanced, and what we want to do is just take note of what the current default format is for your microphone, as we'll be matching all of the audio cables and your speakers to the same default format as is listed here. Generally, what we'd want to see is 16-bit at 48 kilohertz. However, this only has 16-bit at 44 kilohertz, so we're going to go ahead and select that and use that for the rest of the tutorial. Some microphones set their sample rate using a separate control panel, which means that these options will be grayed out and unchangeable for you. If that's the case, just make sure you match all your other devices to what is shown in that grayed out drop-down box. The next thing we'll do is deselect Allow Applications to take exclusive control of this device. That will let us use this microphone in REAPER and Discord at the same time. We're going to do these settings on every device that we're using, so that'll be our real speakers, our real microphone, and both of the virtual cables. So we're done with the microphone, and next we'll go to the cable output here. And what I'm also going to do when I select the cable output is I'm going to rename this so that it makes a little more sense. I'm going to call it virtual microphone. So then that way I know what this device is supposed to be emulating. Then we'll go to the Advanced Properties tab, go here, and make sure that we set it exactly the same way as the microphone from previously. So in this case, we want 2-channel, 16-bit, 44 100 Hz. And we'll deselect exclusive mode. Then we go back to playback, find our real speakers, go to Properties, Advanced, make sure that's also set to 16-bit, 44 100 Hz with no exclusive mode. And then finally, the cable input device, which is the other half of the virtual cable that was installed. We'll go to Properties, rename this and call it Virtual Speakers. Click Advanced and set that to 16-bit 44/100 Hz with no exclusive mode. When you're done with all of those settings, you can go ahead and close the sound panel. The next thing we'll do is go ahead and open REAPER. It should bring up a menu telling us that we need to purchase the product and set our devices. Go ahead and click Yes. The first thing we'll do is set our audio system to Wasapi. Then we'll leave mode at shared mode, and for input device, we're going to select our real microphone. Then for output device, we're going to select our virtual speakers. For input channels, we'll set it to 1, as generally most microphones are single input, so they are mono devices. The last setting we'll change on this page is the block size. We're going to go ahead and set that to 1024, basically doubling it. As you can see at the bottom there, it says a larger buffer will give more stable performance on some systems at the expense of latency. Basically, if you hear crackling, popping, or your voice suddenly begins to sound like a robot, this setting is generally the problem. If that begins to happen, just come into the REAPER Preferences menu. You can get there from Edit, Preferences, and change this block size setting, and just go ahead and double it again. We want to avoid setting it too high for now because it increases the latency, which adds a delay between when you speak and when the words actually get processed and sent out to the computer. So for now, we'll just leave that at 1024. Next, REAPER will tell you that you need to purchase REAPER, but it will also simply allow you to ignore this menu even after the 60 days and just click Still Evaluating. REAPER is $60 if you hate nagging screens, and you can go ahead and purchase it and never see it again. Next, we'll go ahead and just bring it full screen. What I like to do is just drag the mixer meter all the way over to the right, so it shows a set of blue lines on the right here, and just let go of that and then drag this up and kind of bring it back into view, just so we have a little bit more space on the regular REAPER window. The next thing we'll do is go ahead and right-click in this empty gray space on the left and select Insert New Track. Once you have that track added, we're going to go ahead and left-click on the red Record Arm button. That will begin monitoring your microphone, and you should see this meter, the red one next to the track, and the green master meter on the right start picking up your voice while you talk. The next thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and add effects and filters. To do that, you just click on this little power button next to the effects on the track. That will bring up a menu to add your first effect. The first thing we're going to add is a compressor. In order to add that, in the filter box, simply type REACOMP and select that VST. That should bring this window up. A compressor controls the overall volume of your mic, making it so that when you yell or get loud, your voice still comes across at the same volume as when you're speaking. This allows everything to sound more measured and even, and keeps your voice able to be boosted up without becoming too loud when you yell. To set up a compressor, the first setting you need to adjust is the threshold. That's this meter here on the left. This is the volume level the compressor attempts to keep your voice at. Anything louder than this will have its volume reduced toward this threshold by an amount we'll set next. A good volume level to have for your compressor is around -20. So we'll go ahead and select -20 on this slider. The next setting here is the ratio. This is how much the compressor will reduce the volume of sound by if it exceeds the threshold. A higher ratio will clamp the volume down harder, keeping it closer to the level we set earlier, but losing some of that dynamic range. A good ratio is around 3 or 4. Some people will go all the way up to 10. If you notice your volume is still getting close to peaking, you'll want to increase your ratio here. If your audio starts sounding weird, try reducing this ratio. Next is the attack and release times. These control how fast the volume adjustment starts when sound crosses the threshold, the attack, and how fast it stops adjusting the volume when it goes back under the threshold, the release. Good numbers here are 0 and 50. We want a very responsive compressor that won't let any loud sounds pass the threshold. Finally, we'll enable auto makeup. Since the compressor spends all its time reducing the volume of loud sounds, we need to bring everything back up to a comfortable listening level, regardless of what it was set to before. Auto makeup adds a few decibels of extra volume back to the overall output of your mic. That's it for the compressor. REAPER allows you to add all kinds of effects, such as equalizers and noise gates, but we won't go over those in this video. One way of quickly applying several pre-configured effects is to load what's known as an FX chain. If you've been given an FX chain, you can load it from the same menu that we added the compressor to by clicking FX, Add FX Chain. Once we're done setting up the track and effects, we'll save the current settings as a REAPER project file. In order to do that, we'll head up to the File button and select Save Project As. Loading this file later will automatically reapply and begin monitoring the filters. Loading REAPER in the future will also just automatically reopen the last project file that you had open. Now we'll leave REAPER open, and the next thing that we'll do is change the default mic device in Discord and Windows. Here I'm going to use a shortcut to get back to that sound control panel on Windows 10 by right-clicking on the speaker icon on the taskbar and selecting Sounds. If you're using Windows 11 or you otherwise don't have a volume icon in your taskbar, you can just go back through the settings menu I showed you earlier. In order to set your virtual microphone as the default device, you can go ahead and click on the virtual microphone in the Recording tab and select Set as Default. What this means is that all devices will now begin using your new virtual microphone with its applied compressor instead of your old real microphone. Go ahead and select OK, and then we're going to open up Discord and set it to also use it. Once you're in Discord, you can right-click on one of these icons here and select Voice Settings. Once you're in Settings, go ahead and just choose your virtual microphone from the Input Device dropdown. Technically, you can leave it as is since we set the Windows default microphone to be the virtual microphone earlier, but if you don't want to do that, and if you just want to be safe, we can also directly specify it here. Some settings that we want to make sure we have enabled here in Discord is the input volume should be kept at 100%. We'll leave it on voice activity unless you are told to put it on push to talk. We'll leave automatically determine input sensitivity enabled, and we'll scroll all the way down until we find echo cancellation, and we'll go ahead and turn that off. The less voice processing you need, the better your voice will sound. With that in mind, we will enable crisp to reduce the background noise coming out of your mic. For people with a lot of background noise, this uses AI to reduce the volume level of unwanted sounds like fans and humming behind your actual voice. One thing to note about Crisp is that since it uses AI, it will sometimes mistake loud, higher-pitched noises, such as someone with a higher-pitched voice screaming or getting loud, for other unwanted sounds like a siren or an alarm, and just delete it. If this is happening to you and you find yourself getting muted when you get loud, just go ahead and switch to the standard noise suppression. Or if you're recording in a very quiet environment like me, you can go ahead and simply turn this noise suppression off for the same reason as before, where the less processing that we need to do through Discord, the better your voice will sound. Next, we'll just make sure that automatic gain control is enabled as well, and that should be the last of the Discord settings. One last thing that we want to do is make sure the audio that's coming into your computer is at a good level. We can use REAPER to do this. Reopening REAPER, you'll see that there are two meters, one on the right and one on the left. The one we're interested in is the pre-processed voice volume indicator, which is this red bar on the left next to the track. The master volume indicator shows the volume coming out of REAPER and what goes into Discord. We'll go ahead and drag this to give us a bit more visualization. In order to adjust the volume level for your mic, look for a gain knob on your microphone or audio interface. If you don't have one, you'll need to use the Windows Sound Levels. Go ahead and open that Sounds menu again and head over to the Recording tab, right-click your microphone, go to Properties, and adjust your volume level here up and down using this slider. You'll see it doesn't affect my microphone as that uses a different gain knob. Speak into your microphone while adjusting the gain knob up and down until your voice, when you're speaking slightly louder than your normal speaking voice, such as when you might be presenting or getting excited during a riveting match of Fluffy Barrage, and adjust the volume until it's between -12 and -6 on this red meter. That way you still have room for a bit of overhead when you get really loud, but it shouldn't reach all the way up past that 0 mark, at which point your voice will most likely be peaking, which is a very annoying sound for everybody to hear. If you want to be safe, go ahead and reduce the volume until it's around -12. Finally, in addition to the plugins and filters we just laid the groundwork for setting up, there's 2 other areas to easily improve the way your mic sounds. The first and most important is mic technique and discipline. This means making sure you keep your mic off your desk and close to your mouth. You should be no more than a single closed fist length away from the mic at all times, which can take practice to build the proper muscle memory for keeping track of your mic position at all times. The next is the way your room is treated. This isn't required for Fluffy Barrage by any means, and is a nice to have if you want to go above and beyond to improve your audio for your own streams. The easiest, lowest effort way is to simply throw a big blanket over your head, mic, and monitor. This will instantly give you a great acoustically treated space to record in, but can get very warm very fast. Another option is to buy 3 moving blankets or use 3 big blankets you already own, the thicker the better, and hang them behind your head and to the left and right of the microphone, using something like portable clothes racks or just pinning them up to any sort of makeshift stand that you can come up with. The more you can enclose your space with soft, absorbent material, the better you'll sound. Combine all these things together and you'll be sounding great in no time. If you have any trouble or have any questions, feel free to reach out to me for help at any time. Just send me a message and I'll get back to you right away. Remember to drink lots of water and good luck out there, casters. You are the face and now the voice of Fluffy Barrage.